Selene Prime wasn't the kind of place you take your grandma for a quiet weekend, unless she had a penchant for cutthroat politics, an old, grumpy dog that didn't bite unless provoked. But today, it felt like the dog had not only bitten but also swallowed her homework. I swear, if Earth just grew legs and walked off the map, I'm going to need a stiff drink and a long vacation, Nyla murmured, staring at the holographic star map hovering frustratingly empty in front of her. Beside her, Lieutenant Marcus Decker, the ship's communications officer and resident master of sarcasm, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over a chest that had seen one too many bar fights. "Well, Captain, I didn't think I'd live to see the day Earth got a restraining order against the universe. What's next? Mars gets a facelift and joins the beauty pageant." Nyla shot him a look that could have melted tungsten. "Not helping, Decker." "Wasn't trying to," he replied with a grin, his teeth a flash of white against his scruffy beard. But hey, on the bright side, maybe we just took a wrong turn at Albuquerque. The crew of the Resolute was not known for their optimism, and today was no exception. The ship hummed with the dull monotony of engines, a sound that was as much a part of their lives as breathing or grumbling. Outside, stars drifted past like lazy fireflies, indifferent to the chaos unfolding inside the cabin. Nyla turned to the navigation console, her fingers dancing over the controls with the grace of a pianist who'd forgotten half the notes but still had to play the damn symphony. "Check the logs again," she ordered. And by logs, I mean anything that remotely smells like data, even if it's been left out too long and has grown a civilization of mold. Decker complied, his fingers flying over his own console with the enthusiasm of a man who'd rather be doing anything else. "I'm telling you, Captain, it's like Earth never existed. One minute we're getting a cheeseburger at Louie's Diner in New Chicago, next minute, poof. And poofs only happen in magic shows or when your ex finally disappears," Nyla muttered. "So let's figure out which is which." In the back of the bridge, a low chuckle emerged from the ship's engineer, Tamsin Vu, who was currently up to her elbows in something that looked suspiciously like a coffee maker. "If Earth did vanish, maybe it's finally sick of all our crap. I'd fly off too if I were stuck with this lot." Nyla rolled her eyes, which was basically a professional sport on the Resolute. "Vu, if you're done tearing apart the only machine that keeps the crew from mutiny, maybe you could focus on helping us find our missing planet." Vu shrugged, her hands slick with something that might have been oil or possibly coffee grounds. On this ship, it was hard to tell. "Sure thing, boss, but don't blame me if the coffee tastes like engine grease later." "A girl's gotta prioritize." The ship's AI, a delightfully sardonic entity named Area, piped up from the overhead speakers, her voice smooth and slightly mocking. "Captain, I believe there's a transmission from the Coalition, something about a wormhole and an alien temple." "Oh good," Decker said, clapping his hands together with mock enthusiasm. "Because temples inside wormholes are the top vacation destination this time of year." "Put it on screen," Nyla said, ignoring Decker's sarcasm like a seasoned pro. "Let's see what fresh hell this is." The main screen flickered to life, displaying a beleaguered-looking bureaucrat from the Coalition, an organization known for its ability to make paint drying seem riveting. "Captain Renard," the man said, his voice flat and uninspiring, as though he'd been raised on a diet of stale bread and boredom. "We require your assistance with a situation." "Define situation," Nyla replied, folding her arms and preparing for the worst. The bureaucrat cleared his throat with the grace of a dying rhinoceros. "A wormhole in Sector 17B has been deemed of significant interest. It appears to contain a temple, revered by several alien species. We need your expertise to investigate." Nyla arched an eyebrow, the universal sign for "you've got to be kidding me." "And what's this got to do with Earth playing hide and seek?" "We believe," the bureaucrat continued, unperturbed by Nyla's skepticism, "that the temple may hold answers regarding the disappearance of Earth from all known star maps." Just when I thought this day couldn't get any weirder, Vu said, her voice dripping with irony. Next they'll tell us we need to sing karaoke to unlock the secrets of the universe. Nyla sighed, a sound that carried the weight of 1,000 spacefaring misadventures. Fine, we'll check it out. But if this turns out to be a wild goose chase, I'm billing the coalition for emotional damages and a lifetime supply of anti-anxiety meds. Understood, Captain, the bureaucrat replied, his expression as lively as a tax audit. We appreciate your cooperation. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in a state of awkward silence, interrupted only by the occasional beep of a console and the distant hum of the Resolute's engines. Well, Nyla said finally, shaking off the bureaucratic malaise, you heard the man. Let's head to this temple and see what kind of cosmic party they've got going on. Decker grinned, his earlier sarcasm replaced by a gleam of genuine excitement. I hope they have snacks. Alien temples are always better with snacks. If not, we can probably scavenge something off the floor, Vu added, pushing the now slightly deformed coffee maker aside. Although I'm not sure I'd recommend it. With a course set, and the ship's mood somewhere between mildly interested and reluctantly compliant, the Resolute set off toward the coordinates of the wormhole. The journey was as uneventful as space travel could be, which is to say, it involved a lot of staring out at stars that didn't give a damn about human problems. As they neared the wormhole, the bridge lights dimmed, casting the crew in an eerie half-light that made even Decker pause in his endless stream of wisecracks. Whatever's in there, Nyla said, her voice steady but laced with a touch of apprehension. Let's hope it's friendlier than it looks. The wormhole loomed on the main screen, a swirling vortex of cosmic energy that looked more like a stomachache than a gateway to enlightenment. It pulsed with an unsettling rhythm, like the universe's most offbeat drummer having a bad day. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Temple of Doom, Decker quipped, though his usual bravado was tempered by the sight before them. The Resolute moved closer, its sensors flickering with data that made as much sense as a politician at a truth convention. The temple, if it could be called that, was a massive structure suspended within the swirling maelstrom, its architecture blending styles that seemed to defy logic and possibly several laws of physics. Well, Vu said, breaking the silence with her usual brand of dry humor, it's not exactly the Taj Mahal, but I reckon it'll do. Arya, give us a scan of that thing, Nyla ordered, her eyes fixed on the enigmatic structure. And see if you can find a front door that doesn't require a blood sacrifice to open. Scanning now, Arya replied, her tone as chipper as ever despite the ominous backdrop. Though I must say, Captain, this place has all the makings of a delightful family vacation spot. Decker chuckled, though it was a nervous sound, like laughter at a funeral. Yeah, assuming your family is into ancient alien mystery solving and existential dread. The scan results appeared on the screen, a flurry of alien glyphs and incomprehensible symbols that might as well have been a toddler's drawing of their worst nightmare. Looks like we're going in blind, Nyla said, mentally preparing herself for whatever lay ahead. Vu, Decker, suit up. Let's see if we can crack this cosmic nut. The trio donned their gear, the suits designed to protect against everything from radiation to cosmic sarcasm, because out here, you never knew what you'd encounter. As they prepared to board the shuttle that would take them to the temple, Decker couldn't help but quip, "Remember, if we don't make it back, I want my tombstone to read here as a man who had one hell of a punchline." Nyla smirked, shaking her head as they boarded. "I'll make sure it's in neon." With that, the shuttle launched, carrying them toward the temple and whatever mysteries and dangers awaited. The temple seemed to grow larger and more foreboding with each passing second, the swirling energy of the wormhole casting eerie shadows across its surface. "Let's hope this place has some answers," Nyla said, her voice barely a whisper over the shuttle's engines. Decker nodded, his usual levity replaced by a rare moment of seriousness. "And not just more questions. The shuttle docked with a clunk that echoed like a death knell, the airlock hissing open to reveal a dimly lit corridor that stretched into the unknown. "Welcome to the Temple of the Great Unknown," Vu muttered, her voice tinged with both awe and trepidation. "Please keep your arms and legs inside the ride at all times." As they stepped into the darkness, the temple's secrets waited, and somewhere in the vast expanse of space, Earth remained missing, a silent enigma that demanded answers. Their journey was only just beginning. As the crew of the Resolute stepped into the temple's dimly lit corridor, the air had the stale aroma of a high school gymnasium after a particularly brutal dodgeball match. It was the kind of smell that made you question the life decisions that led you here. The only thing missing was a janitor with a grudge and a mop. Nyla took the lead, her eyes darting around like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. "All right, team," she said, her voice echoing off the walls like a particularly sarcastic ghost. "Let's find out what kind of cosmic prank the universe has pulled this time." The corridor led them into a cavernous space that could only be described as architecturally confused. Columns jutted out at odd angles, and the floor was uneven, as if the builders had been playing a game of pin the pillar on the temple after a few too many drinks. Decker whistled, his voice bouncing off the walls. "Looks like the architect was having a bad day. Or maybe he just hated symmetry." "Either way," Vu chimed in, poking at a wall with the tip of her boot, "it's a real fixer-upper." Their banter was interrupted by the arrival of a group of aliens. They were tall, with skin that shimmered like oil slicks, and eyes that seemed to hold the secrets of the universe, or maybe just a really good poker face. The leader stepped forward, her presence commanding yet understated, as if she had no time for theatrics. "I am High Priestess Zyphra," she announced, her voice smooth and melodic but with an edge that could cut glass. "Welcome to the Temple of Unseen Truths." Nyla inclined her head, doing her best impression of diplomacy, an art she'd never quite mastered. "Captain Nyla Renard, we came to inquire about a missing planet, Earth. Heard it might have taken a wrong turn at Albuquerque." Zyphra's eyes seemed to pierce right through them like she was reading a particularly juicy tabloid article. "Ah, yes, the humans, always so curious, so persistent." "That's one way of putting it," Decker muttered under his breath. "I prefer stubborn as hell. The temple," Zyphra continued, ignoring Decker's quip, "holds an ancient technology capable of altering reality itself. It is possible that it is responsible for the disappearance of your world." "Well, at least it wasn't a parking ticket," Vu said, crossing her arms. "So how do we get it back? Or do we just shake it and hope it turns up like spare change in the couch?" "The device is not easily controlled," Zyphra replied, her tone suggesting that not easily controlled was an understatement of the highest order. "It requires a deep understanding, a bond with the energies that flow through it." "Let me guess," Decker said, his sarcasm dialed up to 11. "It involves chanting, incense, and possibly a blood sacrifice." Zyphra's lips curved into a smile that was both amused and slightly condescending. "Not precisely, but it is not a task for the faint of heart, or those with weak stomachs." "Great," Nyla said, her enthusiasm as genuine as a $3 bill. "So, how do we get this show on the road?" Zyphra gestured toward a set of ornate doors at the far end of the chamber. "The device lies within, but be warned, it is protected by trials designed to test the worthiness of those who seek to wield its power. Because nothing says welcome like a series of life-threatening challenges," Vu said, rolling her eyes. "It's like the universe's way of weeding out the truly stupid." The doors creaked open, revealing a dimly lit passageway that seemed to stretch on into infinity. The air was thick with anticipation, and possibly the scent of impending doom. "Guess we're doing this," Nyla said, taking a deep breath and stepping forward. "One step at a time." "Or one misstep at a time," Decker added, following close behind. "Because who doesn't love a good stumble into oblivion?" The passage twisted and turned, leading them through a series of chambers filled with puzzles and traps that made the average escape room look like child's play. Each challenge seemed designed to test their resolve, their wit, and their ability to keep a straight face in the face of absurdity. "Is it just me?" Vu said as they avoided yet another swinging blade. "Or does this place have a real flair for the dramatic?" "Definitely not just you," Nyla replied, her focus on the intricate mechanisms they were attempting to bypass. "It's like they hired a theater major to design this place." As they finally reached the central chamber, it became clear that the temple held more secrets than they had anticipated. The room was dominated by a massive, swirling vortex of energy, pulsating with a rhythm that was both mesmerizing and unsettling. "This must be it," Nyla said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the device. "The reality-bending doodad that's got everyone so worked up. Looks like a science experiment gone wrong," Decker observed, squinting at the patterns of light. "Or maybe right, depending on your perspective." Zyphra appeared beside them, seemingly materializing out of thin air. "The device is ancient," she explained, her tone reverent. "It was created by a civilization long forgotten, capable of reshaping reality to their will." "Sounds like a real party trick," Vu said, her gaze fixed on the swirling energy. "So how do we get it to bring Earth back? The bond must be established," Zyphra replied, her voice taking on a mystical quality. "One of you must attune to the energies and guide them with intent." Nyla glanced at her crew, her expression a mix of determination and resignation. "All right, who's up for playing cosmic DJ?" "I'd volunteer," Decker said, "but I'm more of a talker than a thinker. And this sounds like it requires some serious thinking." "Guess that leaves me," Nyla said, stepping forward with the confidence of someone about to jump out of a perfectly good spaceship. "Can't be worse than captaining this crew, right?" Zyphra nodded, her expression inscrutable. "Focus your mind, Captain. Let the energies flow through you. Feel their rhythm, their pulse. Guide them to your will." Nyla closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as she reached out with her mind. The energies swirled around her, a chaotic dance that seemed to defy logic and reason. It was like trying to herd cats, except the cats were made of pure, unbridled cosmic power. "Feel anything yet?" Vu asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and the tiniest hint of skepticism. Nyla frowned, concentrating. "Actually, yeah, it's like trying to tune a radio, but all I'm getting is static and bad disco." "Keep at it," Decker encouraged, though his tone suggested he was more amused by the situation than genuinely hopeful. "Maybe there's a classic rock station in there somewhere." The energies pulsed, a rhythm that seemed to resonate with something deep within Nyla. It was as if the universe itself was whispering in her ear, telling her secrets she'd never imagined. "Got it," Nyla said suddenly, her eyes snapping open. The energy shifted, responding to her command. "I think I've found the right frequency." The room filled with a blinding light, reality bending and twisting around them as the energies surged. It was like being caught in the eye of a cosmic storm where time and space lost all meaning. When the light finally faded, the chamber was silent, the device still and dormant once more. "Well," Vu said, breaking the silence with her usual dry wit. "Did it work, or are we still stuck in the middle of nowhere?" Nyla blinked, disoriented but hopeful. "Only one way to find out. Let's get back to the Resolute and see if Earth decided to reappear." As they made their way back through the temple, the reality of what they'd just experienced began to sink in. They'd meddled with forces beyond their understanding, and the consequences, good or bad, would soon be revealed. Back on the Resolute, the crew gathered around the holographic star map, anticipation hanging in the air like a thick fog. "All right, Area," Nyla said, her voice steady but laced with tension. "Let's see if we pulled off the impossible." The star map flickered to life, data streaming in as the ship's sensors scanned the cosmos. The room was filled with a palpable sense of expectation, the crew holding their breath as they awaited the verdict. "There it is," Area announced, her tone as chipper as ever. "Earth is back on the map, right where you left it." "Congratulations, Captain. A collective sigh of relief swept through the bridge, the crew exchanging looks of disbelief and triumph. They'd done it, somehow, against all odds. They'd brought Earth back from the brink of oblivion. Nyla leaned back in her chair, exhaustion and satisfaction mingling in her expression. Well, that was fun. Let's never do it again. You said it, Decker agreed, his usual sarcasm tempered by genuine relief. Next time, let's solve a mystery that doesn't involve reality-bending cosmic doodads. But where's the fun in that? Vu countered, her grin wide and infectious. As the ship set course for home, the crew settled into a comfortable silence, the weight of their adventure slowly lifting. They'd faced the unknown and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. And somewhere, out in the vast expanse of space, the universe continued its eternal dance, oblivious to the trials and triumphs of those who dared to explore its depths. Back on the Resolute, Captain Nyla Renard was beginning to think that cosmic storms and reality-bending devices were the least of her worries. It seemed the universe had other plans, and they involved a healthy dose of betrayal and hostility. Exactly what she needed, in the way someone needs a hole in the head. The star map flickered irritably, like it was trying to decide whether to cooperate or annoy the hell out of them. Nyla was still riding the high of their recent success. Earth was back, and she hadn't fried her neurons trying to tame the ancient device. But there was an itch at the back of her mind, a whisper of impending chaos. She should have known better. In space, peace was a mirage, and someone was always ready to pull the rug out from under you. Why is it that every time we solve one problem, three more pop up? Decker leaned against the console, arms crossed, his expression as sardonic as ever. Because the universe is just one big cosmic prank, Nyla replied, rubbing her temples. And we're the punchline. Vu sauntered over, as casual as a cat with one eye on the canary. So, who do you think's gonna screw us over this time? Because I've got credits riding on the High Priestess. A reasonable bet, Nyla thought. Zyphra had that look about her, the kind that suggested she'd sell you out for a shiny rock. Wouldn't surprise me, she muttered. But let's not discount the possibility of our dear alien hosts throwing a tantrum. The doors to the bridge slid open, and High Priestess Zyphra glided in with all the grace of a serpent on the prowl. Her presence alone was enough to make the air feel heavier, like it was thick with ulterior motives. Captain Renard, she began, her voice as smooth as silk and twice as slippery. I trust you're satisfied with the results. About as satisfied as I can be without a stiff drink, Nyla quipped. But we've got other concerns, like why the temple's defenses seem to be on high alert. Care to explain? Zyphra's smile was the kind that didn't reach her eyes. The temple sometimes reacts, unpredictably, to changes in the cosmic fabric. Especially when humans are involved. Great, Decker interjected, throwing his hands up. We're cosmic catnip. More like the universe's chew toy, Vu added, eyeing Zyphra with suspicion. The High Priestess waved a hand dismissively. It's nothing to worry about. Yet, Nyla had learned long ago that nothing to worry about in alien speak usually translated to you should be very worried indeed. And as if on cue, the Resolute shuddered, alarms blaring like a banshee's wail. Incoming transmission, Decker barked, his fingers flying over the console. And it's not a friendly welcome-back message. The screen blinked to life, revealing a snarling face that looked like it had lost a fight with a blender. One of Zyphra's compatriots, if Nyla had to guess, though he looked less like a high priest and more like a high school bully. You are trespassing on sacred ground, the alien growled, spittle flying. Leave immediately or face the wrath of the Guardians. Nyla sighed, her patience wearing thin. You mean the same Guardians who supposedly didn't mind us poking around a second ago? Zyphra spread her hands, her expression a picture of innocence. The Guardians are temperamental. Yeah, like a toddler on a sugar crash, Vu muttered. So what now? Decker asked, his usual sarcasm tempered by the distinct possibility of imminent violence. Nyla glanced at Zyphra, who seemed to find the proceedings amusing. Any advice, High Priestess, Or do we just wing it and hope we don't end up as space dust? Zyphra's eyes glittered with a dangerous amusement. Perhaps if you demonstrate your prowess once more, the Guardians will be placated. Great. More cosmic noodling, Nyla said, exasperation and sarcasm blending seamlessly. Decker, get the crew to battle stations. Vu, see if you can soothe the temple's ruffled feathers. And Zyphra, try not to stab us in the back while we're distracted. As they returned to the passageway, nerves frayed and tension high, Nyla couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The temple seemed to echo with whispers, shadows moving just beyond the corner of her eye, a lovely ambience for imminent betrayal. You ever get the sense that we're the mice and someone's holding a very big stick? Vu asked, her voice low. Constantly, Nyla replied, casting a wary glance at the high priestess. But I'm more worried about the cat in the house. The temple's defenses had indeed ramped up their game. More puzzles, more traps, more opportunities to end up as an interesting stain on the floor. It was like the universe was daring them to fail. Why do I get the feeling this is someone's idea of entertainment? Decker grumbled, narrowly avoiding a pitfall that opened up with all the subtlety of a drunken elephant. Because it probably is, Vu shot back, her fingers deftly disarming a nearby mechanism. Some sadistic architect with too much time on their hands. They finally reached another chamber, this one dominated by an ornate altar pulsing with an eerie, phosphorescent glow. Nyla approached cautiously, half expecting it to explode or start reciting bad poetry. All right, Zyphra, tell me this altar isn't about to demand a blood sacrifice, Nyla said, her tone a mix of wariness and resignation. Zyphra just smiled, the kind of smile that suggested she knew more than she was letting on. It requires a gesture of goodwill, shall we say. Great, Decker muttered. And here I left my goodwill in my other space pants. The high priestess placed a hand on the altar and the glow intensified, bathing the room in a light that was both inviting and ominous. Proceed, she instructed, her voice taking on a commanding edge. Nyla hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She'd faced down pirates, navigated asteroid fields, even brokered peace between squabbling alien factions. But this felt different, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Here goes nothing, she muttered, stepping forward and placing her hand on the altar. The energy that surged through her was a tempest, wild and untamed. She could feel it probing her mind, testing her resolve. Think happy thoughts, Vu joked, though her eyes were full of concern. I'm more of a think sarcastic thoughts kind of gal, Nyla replied through gritted teeth, focusing her mind on the task at hand. The altar responded, energy flowing like a river redirected by sheer force of will. It was a dance of chaos and control, a delicate balance that threatened to break at any moment. Just as Nyla felt she was gaining control, the ground shook with a ferocity that sent her stumbling back. Zyphra's serene composure didn't falter, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, surprise perhaps, or calculation. Something's not right, Decker said, his voice tense. I'm getting interference, a transmission, but it's scrambled. Let me guess, Nyla said, her voice laced with frustration. Another friendly neighborhood threat. No, Vu replied, her eyes narrowing. It's a warning. Before they could react, the chamber echoed with the sound of footsteps, a dozen or more closing in fast. Nyla's instinct screamed danger, her hand inching toward her sidearm. Looks like the welcoming committee's arrived, Decker remarked, his usual bravado tinged with caution. The intruders emerged from the shadows, an eclectic mix of aliens, each one armed and decidedly unfriendly. Their leader, a hulking figure with skin like mottled stone, stepped forward, fixing them with a glare that could melt steel. You meddle in affairs beyond your ken, he rumbled, voice like grinding boulders. Leave now or be destroyed. Nyla squared her shoulders, meeting his gaze without flinching. Sorry, but we're fresh out of white flags. Besides, we're kind of attached to this dimension. The alien leader snarled, and Nyla could see Zyphra out of the corner of her eye, watching with unsettling calm. Stand down, Zyphra said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "They are under my protection." The stone-skinned alien hesitated, his loyalty to the High Priestess colliding with his obvious disdain for the humans. "We will withdraw," he said finally, though his tone suggested the decision pained him. As the intruders melted back into the shadows, Nyla exhaled, her relief short-lived. Something was brewing, a storm on the horizon, and they were right in its path. "What now?" Vu asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and trepidation. "We figure out who's really pulling the strings," Nyla replied, her gaze fixed on Zyphra, "and we make sure we're not dancing to their tune." Back in familiar corridors, the crew's banter was tinged with an edge of unease. The temple's defenses weren't their only problem. There were bigger forces at play, and betrayal lurked in every shadow. "So," Decker said, trying to lighten the mood, "anyone else feel like a pawn in a cosmic chess game? More like a knight," Vu replied. "We've got moves, but we're still expendable." Nyla just shook her head, the weight of command a familiar burden, now heavier with the knowledge of unseen threats. It was only a matter of time before the next challenge reared its head, and they'd have to face it with all the wit, courage, and sarcasm they could muster. As they returned to the Resolute, the crew was silent, the ship's hum a comforting presence despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. Nyla settled into her chair, the stars stretching out before them like an endless, uncharted sea. "All systems ready," Decker reported, his voice steady. "Good," Nyla replied, her gaze lingering on the star map. "Let's see what this universe can throw at us next." With a nod, the Resolute leapt into the void, the crew braced for whatever lay ahead, bound by a shared purpose and a stubborn refusal to give up, no matter how dark the road became. The Resolute hummed with the promise of adventure or disaster, depending on your perspective. Nyla leaned back in her chair, cracking her knuckles. Her gaze swept across the bridge, landing on Decker, who was chewing gum like it owed him money. "All right, team," she began, locking eyes with each of them. "Time to infiltrate that temple's inner sanctum. Who's got death wishes?" Decker spat his gum into a waste chute. "Aren't we just full of bright ideas today?" Vu grinned, though it was more of a grimace. "Bright ideas? More like a neon warning sign screaming, 'Bad decisions ahead.' That's the spirit," Nyla said dryly. "Now, Zyphra's little shrine of horrors isn't going to crack itself open, so let's get cracking before something decides we look better in a death montage." Decker raised an eyebrow. "You reckon the Guardians would appreciate us more if we brought them some snacks? I hear cosmic entities are fond of pretzels, only if they are salted with our despair," Nyla replied, straightening. "Now, Vu, you handle the tech. Decker, you're on lookout duty. Keep an eye out for anything that even remotely looks like it wants to convert us to a fine mist." The airlock hissed open, and they made their way through the corridors like a pack of thieves trying to break into a particularly finicky safe. The temple loomed, its structure as welcoming as a tax audit. Nyla glanced over her shoulder at Vu. "You're sure you can bypass the security systems?" Vu shrugged. "Security's like a good joke. There's always a punchline. Just make sure the punchline doesn't involve us getting vaporized," Decker muttered, peering around a corner with the paranoia of someone who'd walked in on a partner watching a rom-com. They crept through the temple like mice in a cat sanctuary, each step measured. Nyla couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Of course, in a place like this, there was always something watching, usually with too many eyes. "Hey, Nyla," Vu said quietly, fiddling with a control panel that looked like it was designed by a committee of sadists. "You ever think this whole missing Earth thing is just a cosmic joke? Like, maybe the universe just misplaced us behind a celestial couch?" Nyla snorted. "Sure, and maybe the universe left its keys in the fridge too. But either way, we've got to find it." The security system let out a beep of protest as Vu worked her magic, the panel lighting up like a disgruntled Christmas tree. "Almost got it," Vu whispered, sweat beading on her forehead. "Just one more sec." A sudden clang echoed through the corridor, the kind of sound that usually preceded disaster. "Oops," Vu mumbled. "That's not comforting, Vu," Decker hissed, glancing down the passageway as if expecting doom itself to come waltzing toward them. The temple's defenses roused like an angry bear. Lights flickered ominously, and the air filled with a low hum that vibrated in their bones. Nyla's instincts screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go but forward. "Great job, Vu," Nyla said, sarcasm dripping from every word. "You've made the temple angry. I'm sure it's grateful for the extra motivation." "Hey, I just touched the thing," Vu protested, hands raised defensively. "It must have been in a bad mood, just like my ex," Decker quipped, eyes alert. "Always ready to bite my head off at the slightest provocation." As they pressed on, the temple's interior took on a life of its own. Walls shifted, floors tilted, everything determined to make their lives just that little bit more difficult. It was almost as if the temple enjoyed watching them struggle. "Why do I feel like we're walking into a trap?" Vu asked, eyeing the shifting architecture warily. "Because we probably are," Nyla replied, steadying herself as the floor decided it wanted to be a slide. "But it's the only lead we've got." They reached another chamber, this one even less welcoming than the last. It was dominated by a massive door, carved with intricate symbols that pulsed with an unsettling energy. Nyla approached cautiously, half expecting it to demand a password or a sacrificial offering. "All right, Vu," Nyla said, nodding toward the door. "Think you can sweet-talk it into letting us through?" Vu eyed the door like one might a particularly uncooperative vending machine. "I can try, but no promises. This thing looks like it's got trust issues." Before Vu could begin, a sudden clang rang out, echoing through the chamber like a death knell. The kind of sound that made you realize you just run out of luck. Decker swore under his breath. "We've got company." From the shadows emerged figures, more of those guardians, their presence as unwelcome as a surprise visit from the in-laws. Their leader, a towering figure with eyes like burning coals, stepped forward, brandishing a weapon that hummed ominously. "You trespass on sacred ground," the leader intoned, his voice like gravel slowly being crushed. "Your journey ends here." Nyla squared her shoulders, refusing to back down. "Sorry, Stoneface, but we didn't come all this way just to be shown the door." The leader didn't look impressed. "Then you will be destroyed." "Great," Decker said, drawing his weapon. "Just what I needed today, a fight to the death with a bunch of sentient statues." The ensuing battle was chaos. Blaster fire and energy blasts illuminating the chamber like a deranged light show. Nyla ducked behind a column, returning fire with precision honed by years of experience. Vu took cover, trying to find a way to hack into the temple's systems amidst the chaos. Decker was in his element, moving with a fluidity that belied his flippant attitude. He took down two guardians with well-placed shots, a grim smile on his lips. "Remind me to never join another temple tour," he quipped, ducking a blast that singed his hair. The tide began to turn, the guardians falling back as Nyla and her crew fought with an intensity born of desperation. But just as victory seemed within reach, disaster struck. A guardian's energy blast caught Vu in the side, sending her sprawling. "Vu!" Nyla shouted, heart lurching. Decker was at Vu's side in an instant, returning fire with a fury that drove the remaining guardians back. Nyla covered them, her focus split between the fight and the sight of Vu, pale and gasping. "Hang in there, Vu," Decker said, pressing a hand to the wound in a futile attempt to staunch the flow of blood. "You're not allowed to check out yet." Vu managed a weak smile, though it was more grimace than anything. "I'll try not to ruin your day, Decker." Nyla's heart was a drum in her chest, each beat a reminder of how fragile this all was. They'd lost crew members before, space wasn't kind or forgiving, but it never got easier. Each loss was a scar, a reminder of the price they paid for their defiance. "We need to move," Nyla said, her voice tightly controlled, shouting over the din of battle. "Or we're all going to end up as wall decorations." Decker nodded, his expression determined. "Let's get the hell out of here." With Vu between them, they made their retreat, firing all the while. The guardians, relentless as ever, pursued them with dogged determination. "Any bright ideas?" Decker asked, breathless as they stumbled through the corridors. "Yeah," Nyla replied. Don't die, good plan, Decker remarked, sarcasm woven into the fabric of his words. I'll add it to my to-do list. They finally reached the exit, bursting out into the open air with a sense of relief that was short-lived. The temple loomed behind them, a reminder of how close they'd come to disaster, and how much further they still had to go. Vu was barely conscious, her breath shallow and pained. Nyla's heart twisted, the weight of command a heavy mantle she could never quite shed. Don't you dare die on me, Vu, she muttered, a promise and a plea in one. Decker, for once, was silent, the kind of silence that spoke volumes. They all knew what was at stake, and the cost of failure was written in every line on their faces. They made it back to the Resolute in a blur of adrenaline and determination. The crew rallied, moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. They'd been through hell before, and they'd make it through this, too, no matter the odds. As they lifted off, the temple receding behind them like a bad memory, Nyla took a deep breath. They'd buy Vu time, get her the help she needed. They'd find Earth or die trying. Because in the end, it wasn't just about them. It was about every soul lost in the void, waiting for someone to bring them home. Hey, Nyla, Decker said, his voice breaking the silence. Next time, let's skip the temples and go for a nice, quiet asteroid field. Less chance of getting shot at. Nyla managed a smile, though it felt like a fragile thing. Deal. But only if you promise to stop making friends with homicidal statues. Can't make any promises there, Decker replied, eyes twinkling despite the tension. I've got a gift. Nyla shook her head, the banter a balm on her frayed nerves. They were battered and bruised, but they were still standing. For now, that was enough. As the Resolute sailed through the stars, Nyla stared out at the void, infinite and indifferent. The universe might be one big cosmic prank, but they'd keep punching back, humor and irreverence their sharpest weapons. And maybe, just maybe, they'd find their way home. The temple corridors twisted around them like a bad hangover, confusing, relentless, and with the occasional existential dread thrown in for good measure. The air was thick with a tension that clung to Nyla's skin, a reminder that they were knee-deep in trouble with no sign of a way out. Her crew was trailing behind, like a band of sorry misfits at a cosmic funeral. Decker was unusually quiet, which in itself was a red flag. Vu was slumped over, her pallor that of a washed-out nebula, and every step seemed to cost her more than the last. Nyla gritted her teeth, cursing the universe for its morbid sense of humor. This place is a maze, Decker said, breaking the silence. Like my love life, no end in sight and full of dead ends. Nyla shot him a look. If we don't find a way out soon, we're going to be the main attraction in Zyphra's next temple tour. You mean we're not already? Decker returned, managing a ghost of a smile. I was hoping for a more glamorous end. They took a left, then a right, then another left, each turn a gamble in a game where the house always won. The walls loomed ancient and oppressive, as if silently judging them for their audacity to survive. Is it just me, or does every corridor look the same? Vu muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Like a really boring kaleidoscope, or the universe's way of telling us it's time to throw in the towel, Decker added, eyes scanning for threats. But I'm not a quitter. I just like to reevaluate my life choices periodically. A distant rumble reverberated through the stone, a reminder that somewhere out there, more guardians were probably gearing up to introduce them to a world of pain. Nyla refused to let despair creep in. They'd been through worse. Probably. Maybe not. Actually, this was pretty damn bad. Got any tricks left up your sleeve, Nyla? Vu asked, a hint of desperation creeping into her usually steady tone. As a matter of fact, I do, Nyla replied, though half of her mind was still searching for the actual trick. It involves not dying, so I hope you're all on board, Decker snorted. Sold. What's plan B if that doesn't work? Plan B is... Nyla paused, coming up short. Well, let's focus on plan A for now. That's comforting, Vu said, though there was a lilt of humor in her voice. But given the current circumstances, I'd settle for a plan Z. They pressed on, ever deeper into the temple's guts, the oppressive atmosphere doing its best to suffocate any remaining optimism. Nyla's star map flickered irritably, as if mocking their predicament. She tapped it with the finesse of someone trying to coax life back into an ancient machine. "Piece of junk," she muttered. "Hey, it's doing better than my last relationship," Decker quipped. "At least it still lights up sometimes." The corridor opened up into a vast chamber, the kind of place that screamed final showdown with all the subtlety of a star going supernova. Zyphra's little shrine of horrors lurked somewhere in here, Nyla was sure. But where exactly was anyone's guess? The universe liked to play its cards close to the chest. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones as the chamber revealed its secrets. Pillars lined the perimeter, twisted like the universe's attempt at modern art. Shadows danced, and somewhere in the darkness an ominous clanking echoed, a sound that could only mean one thing: more company. "Perfect," Decker sighed. "Exactly what we needed. An audience." The Guardians emerged, stepping out of the shadows like party crashers with a taste for violence. Their leader, a particularly grim-looking stone-faced monstrosity with a perpetual frown, glared at them with eyes devoid of humor or any sense of a good time. "You have defiled this sacred place long enough," the leader intoned, voice echoing like a verdict from the cosmos itself. Nyla raised an eyebrow. "Sorry, but we're all out of give a damn." The leader didn't look amused. "Your journey ends here." Did he rehearse that line? Vu asked, eyes narrowed. "Because the delivery needs work." "Maybe he's new at this," Decker suggested, his grip on his weapon tightening. "Let's give him the benefit of the doubt." Nyla's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and running on fumes. But she'd be damned if they were going down without a fight. She glanced at her crew, seeing the trust in their eyes despite the odds. They were in this together, come hell or high cosmic prank. "All right," Nyla said, her voice steady. "Let's show them what happens when you corner a pack of stubborn idiots." Decker grinned, a wolfish expression that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I like the sound of that. Let's give them a show." The battle erupted, chaos descending like a shroud as blaster fire and energy blasts turned the chamber into a hellscape. Nyla moved with practiced precision, her weapon an extension of her will as she fought to keep the Guardians at bay. Vu hunkered down beside a pillar, working on something with the concentration of someone trying to defuse a bomb, a fitting analogy, given their situation. "Whatever you're doing, Vu, make it fast," Nyla called over the din. "Just trying to convince this place to take a nap," Vu replied, fingers flying over her device. "Turns out temples don't come with an off switch." "Figures," Decker shouted, taking out a Guardian with a shot that would have made any sniper proud. "Nothing in life is easy." The Guardians pressed closer, relentless and unyielding. Nyla ducked and dodged, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. Desperation clawed at her, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the fight, on the survival of her crew. "Anytime now, Vu," Nyla yelled, as a Guardian's blast narrowly missed her head. "Working on it," Vu shouted back, her voice tinged with frustration. "This thing is more stubborn than Decker after a bad breakup." "Hey," Decker protested. "I resemble that remark." The room seemed to pulse with energy, the very air vibrating with impending doom. Nyla felt the weight of the moment, a grim certainty that this could very well be their last stand. But if they were going down, they'd go down swinging. "Get ready to move on my mark," Nyla ordered, eyes scanning for an opening. The Guardians closed in, their leader advancing with a weapon that sparked and crackled, promising a swift end. Nyla met his gaze, defiant to the last. "Now, Vu," Nyla shouted, her instincts screaming that time was up. Vu slammed something into the device, a spark of determination lighting her eyes. A moment later the chamber shuddered, the temple itself seeming to groan in protest. The lights flickered, and a low rumble echoed through the stone, an avalanche of sound that seemed to shake the very foundations. "Run!" Nyla yelled, not needing to be told twice herself. The crew bolted, adrenaline lending wings to their feet as the temple began to collapse in on itself. The Guardians, caught off guard, stumbled and fell, their pursuit faltering under the sudden onslaught of chaos. They raced through the corridors, the temple disintegrating around them. Nyla led the charge, Vu at her side, with Decker bringing up the rear, his usual levity replaced by grim determination. "Next time, let's pick a less volatile vacation spot," Decker shouted over the noise, his voice barely audible above the din. "Next time, we're staying on the ship," Nyla replied, heart thundering. "I've had enough of temples to last a lifetime." They burst out into the open, the fresh air a welcome relief after the oppressive confines of the temple. Behind them, the structure continued to crumble, a testament to their narrow escape and the odds they'd defied. Vu stumbled, her energy spent, and Nyla caught her, steadying her with a firm grip. "Not bad, Vu," Nyla said, offering a tired smile. "Not bad at all." Vu managed a weak grin. "I aim to please." They made their way back to the Resolute, the familiar sight a balm to their frayed nerves. The crew rallied, gathering their wits and strength, knowing that the fight wasn't over yet, but they'd live to see another day. As they boarded the ship, Decker turned to Nyla, his expression a mix of exasperation and relief. "Next time, we're picking a quiet, uninhabited asteroid. No temples, no guardians, just a nice, peaceful rock." Nyla chuckled, feeling the weight of their escape finally settling in. "Deal, but only if you promise to stop making friends with homicidal architecture." "Can't help it," Decker replied, eyes twinkling despite everything. "I'm a people person." The Resolute lifted off, leaving the temple in ruins, a testament to the chaos they'd wrought and survived. Nyla took a breath, the weight of command settling back onto her shoulders. They'd faced the abyss and come through, battered but not broken. As the stars streaked by, Nyla allowed herself a moment of respite, knowing there were more battles to come. But for now, they'd earned this small victory, and maybe that was enough. At least until the universe decided to throw another cosmic punch line their way. "Hey Nyla," Decker said, breaking the silence. "You ever think the universe is just testing us for its amusement?" Nyla considered that, her gaze on the endless void. "Probably. But joke's on the universe because we're not going down easy." With that, they sailed on, defiant and irreverent, a crew united by their shared struggles and the unyielding resolve to find their way home. Because in the end, that's what mattered, finding their place in a universe that seemed determined to make everything as difficult as possible. And if they had to laugh in the face of cosmic absurdity to get there, so be it. The Resolute hummed with a sense of foreboding as it sailed through the void, a silent testament to the chaos they had just narrowly avoided. Nyla leaned against the console, rubbing the bridge of her nose as she surveyed her ragtag crew. They didn't look any worse for wear, but experience had taught her that spacefaring could make even the most resilient feel like a scrap heap after a few close calls. "So, what's the plan? Besides not dying a horrible, cosmic death?" Decker piped up, his sarcasm as relentless as a malfunctioning airlock. "Surviving wasn't enough of a plan," Nyla shot back, a hint of a grin tugging at her lips. She straightened up, the weight of leadership heavy but familiar. "We're not out of the cosmic woods yet." "Great. Nothing like near-death experiences to keep the blood pumping," Vu muttered, her voice tinged with weary resignation. She slouched in her seat, eyes half closed. "I need a vacation from my vacation." Nyla tapped the console, her thoughts a swirling mess of half-formed plans. "There's something we missed in that damn temple, something only we can access." Decker raised an eyebrow. "Like a secret stash of alien whiskey, because I could really go for a drink that's guaranteed to end my liver." "Sadly, no," Nyla replied, swiping at the holographic star map. It flickered, as though mocking her attempts to piece together a coherent strategy. "But it's something that might just keep us from becoming cosmic dust." Vu perked up, curiosity piqued despite her exhaustion. "What are you thinking, Cap? That temple was more than just a death trap." Nyla's voice had the edge of someone putting the pieces together at gunpoint. "It was built with human access in mind. The tech, it's keyed to us," Decker snorted. "What, humans have a universal password now, password 123. "I wish it was that simple," Nyla said, shaking her head. "But there's something unique about us. Maybe it's our DNA, or maybe our knack for screwing things up on a galactic scale. Either way, we're the key." Vu let out a low whistle. A temple that listens to humans, huh? Guess we're not the universe's biggest joke after all. Don't get too cocky, Decker warned. We're still a punchline, just a slightly more important one. Nyla folded her arms, eyes fixed on the star map as it displayed a dizzying array of possibilities. This is our shot. There's a hidden access point in that temple. It's dangerous, sure, but it might just give us the edge we need. An edge against what? The universe itself, Vu asked skeptically. Against whoever built that temple and wants us dead, Nyla replied, her voice firm. We've got one shot at this, and it's either find a way to use what they left behind or become cosmic roadkill. Sounds like a plan. Decker leaned back in his seat, stretching. Or a suicide mission. Same thing, really. Nyla couldn't argue with that. Get some rest. We need to be sharp for what's next. Vu groaned, pushing herself up. You heard the captain. Recharge before we plunge headfirst into more insanity. The crew dispersed, each lost in their own thoughts. Nyla lingered, staring at the star map with a mixture of hope and dread. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but if there was one thing she'd learned, it was that human stubbornness was a force to be reckoned with. The Resolute's engines thrummed a steady beat as they approached the remnants of the temple. It loomed in the distance, a dark silhouette against the vastness of space, almost mocking in its silent defiance. This time, though, Nyla was ready to play its game. Back to the scene of the crime, Decker commented dryly. I feel like we're asking for trouble. When isn't that the case? Nyla replied, adjusting her gear. But this time, we're going in smarter. Vu tinkered with her own equipment, her brow furrowed in concentration. If by smarter you mean with a vague idea of what we're doing, then sure. Hey, vague's gotten us this far, Decker said with a shrug. Better than flying blind. They docked with the temple remains, the airlock hissing open with the reluctance of a rusty hinge. The stale scent of the place hit them again, a heady reminder of sweat-soaked gymnasiums and ancient tombs. Smells like home, Vu quipped, stepping inside and wrinkling her nose. Remind me to never visit your home, Decker said, following close behind. They moved cautiously through the corridors, the oppressive architecture looming above them. Nyla led the way, her instincts honed from countless skirmishes with the unknown. The path was familiar, yet different, altered by the subtle shift in their understanding. This way, Nyla instructed, veering to the left. She could feel it in her bones, an electric hum that resonated with a hidden rhythm. The access point should be nearby. Decker glanced around, unease etched on his features despite his cavalier demeanor. You sure about this, Nyla? About as sure as I am that space is trying to kill us, she replied. But we're not going down without a fight. They reached a chamber that Nyla had only glimpsed in passing before. It thrummed with potential energy, a nexus of power that radiated a strange familiarity. The walls were inscribed with symbols and patterns that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. All right, Nyla said, squaring her shoulders. This is it. We make it work or we become history. Vu moved to a console, her fingers dancing over the controls, interpreting the alien language with a mix of intuition and desperation. It's got a biometric lock, she muttered, studying the readouts. Only opens for humans. Typical. We're always the ones who have to open Pandora's boxes, Decker remarked, watching Vu work with an attentive eye. Nyla stepped forward, placing her hand on the scanner. The console responded immediately, the symbols lighting up in a cascade of color. A low hum reverberated through the chamber, resonating with a frequency that seemed to bypass logic and speak directly to the soul. Welcome, a disembodied voice intoned, sounding almost amused. Initiating human access protocol. Well, that's not ominous, Vu said, her voice tinged with irony as the chamber came alive around them. The walls shifted, panels sliding open to reveal a hidden alcove. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested a device unlike anything they'd encountered, a sleek, elegant construct that seemed to pulse with an internal light. Looks like we found our prize, Nyla said, eyeing the device with a mixture of trepidation and curiosity. Or our doom, Decker added, ever the pessimist. Vu approached the pedestal, her gaze fixed on the device. "This thing's got enough power to light up a planet," she said, all creeping into her voice. "Could be a weapon or a power source. Hell, it could be both." Nyla nodded, considering the weight of their discovery. "Whatever it is, it's our ticket out of this mess." Decker crossed his arms, a skeptical look on his face. "And what's the catch? This kind of thing usually comes with strings attached." "Probably," Nyla admitted. "But it's a chance. We've been running blind, and now we've got a tool that might just tip the scales." Vu carefully examined the device, her fingers hovering over the controls. "It's definitely linked to the temple's systems. We can use it to—" A sudden noise cut her off, the telltale clanking of approaching guardians echoing through the corridors. Their respite was at an end. The temple knew it had intruders once more. "Looks like the welcoming committee's back," Decker said, drawing his weapon. "What's Plan B?" "No Plan B," Nyla replied, steeling herself. "We make this work or we go down swinging." The guardians emerged, their stony faces as unreadable as ever, weapons raised and ready. Nyla and her crew squared off, determination etched into their features. "Hold them off," Nyla ordered. "Vu, get that device online. We need every advantage we can get." The battle erupted anew, the chamber once again becoming a maelstrom of violence and chaos. Nyla moved with the fluidity of someone who'd been dancing with death for far too long, her blaster an extension of her will. Decker covered the flanks, providing suppressive fire with grim efficiency. "Why is it always us against the universe?" he shouted over the din. "Because the universe has terrible taste in enemies," Nyla shot back, taking down a guardian with a well-placed shot. Vu's hands flew over the device, her focus unshakable despite the chaos around her. Nyla trusted her, knew that if anyone could unlock the temple's secrets it was Vu. "Almost there," Vu called, her voice strained but determined. "Almost isn't good enough, Vu," Decker yelled, narrowly dodging a guardian's swing. "It'll have to be," Vu retorted, fingers moving faster than thought. The device pulsed, its light intensifying until it bathed the chamber in a brilliant glow. Energy crackled through the air, the temple responding with a shudder as though acknowledging a long-awaited command. "Got it," Vu yelled triumphantly. "We're in," the guardians faltered, their movements hesitant as the temple's systems responded to the device's activation. Nyla felt the shift in power, knew they'd turned the tide. "Let's move," Nyla commanded, leading the charge. The guardians were momentarily disoriented, their programming conflicted by the new input. It was the break they needed. They raced through the corridors, the temple's systems now a protective ally rather than an adversary. The walls seemed to guide them, opening paths that had been hidden before, leading them toward safety. As they burst into the open air once more, the temple groaned behind them, its structure realigning, seemingly at peace now that its ancient purpose had been fulfilled. They made it back to the Resolute, the ship's familiar hum a comforting lullaby after the chaos. Nyla breathed a sigh of relief, the tension leaving her shoulders as they settled into the cockpit. "Well," Decker said, panting as he collapsed into his seat, "that was a hell of a detour." "Detour?" Nyla echoed, a grin breaking through her exhaustion. "I'd call it a cosmic adventure." Vu slumped into her seat, a weary smile on her face. "Next time I vote for a beach vacation. With real sand." Nyla laughed, the sound carrying a hard-won relief. "Agreed. But first, let's get the hell out of here." The Resolute lifted off, leaving the temple and its secrets behind. They were battered, bruised, but alive, and ready to face whatever cosmic curveballs the universe might throw their way next. As they sailed through the stars, Nyla knew they'd made a difference, turned the tables in a game rigged against them. And while the fight wasn't over, they had a chance. A chance to find their way back to a missing home, to solve the mystery of Earth's disappearance. "Hey, Nyla," Decker said, breaking the silence. "Think the universe ever gets tired of us pulling stunts like this?" Nyla chuckled, her gaze fixed on the stars. "If it does, it'll have to try harder to keep us down." With that, they cruised through the void, a crew united in their defiance and stubborn resolve. Whatever awaited them, they'd face it together, humor, snark, and all. Captain Nyla Renard was feeling pretty damn invincible as the Resolute soared through the void. The temple was behind them, secrets unlocked and shot to hell, and despite the odds, they'd somehow not ended up as space debris. She hadn't had this kind of adrenaline rush since that time she'd piloted a cargo freighter through a collapsing wormhole on a dare. Not her smartest move, but it did wonders for her reputation. In the cramped cockpit, Decker was fiddling with the holographic star map, which, now that Temple's device had done its magic, was showing something new. Something that looked suspiciously like Earth's coordinates blinking back into existence. "Well, would you look at that," Decker said, a smirk quirking his lips. "Earth, back from the dead. Like a cosmic zombie with a point to prove," Nyla chuckled, leaning back in her chair. "Cosmic zombies. Now there's a thought. Wonder if they crave brains or just the sweet satisfaction of watching us screw up from afar. I'd wager it's the latter. They're probably up there with popcorn, rooting for us to trip over our own feet," Decker replied, stretching his legs out. Behind them, Vu was sprawled in her seat, staring at the star map like it might vanish if she blinked too hard. "I can't believe it worked." "I mean, I knew it would," she added quickly, "but damn if it wasn't a long shot." "Just like all our best plans," Nyla said, offering a grin. "If it's not a gamble, we're doing it wrong. Here's to living on the edge," Vu replied, raising an imaginary glass. "And not falling off. Speaking of not falling off, what's our next move, fearless leader?" Decker asked, tapping the star map to zoom in on Earth's coordinates. "We gonna pop in for a visit, see how the old rock's holding up?" Nyla considered it, the prospect both enticing and terrifying. Earth was more myth than reality these days, a bedtime story told to restless spacefarers. But now it was real again, and the idea of being the first to set foot on it in who knew how long was both a thrill and a burden. "We should," she said finally. "No sense restoring its coordinates if we're not gonna check the place out. Besides, we owe it to ourselves. We've come too far to stop now, assuming we can get there without attracting every alien faction from here to Andromeda," Vu added, ever the realist. "Ah, what's a little galactic conflict between friends?" Decker quipped. "Keeps life interesting." Nyla knew Decker's brand of humor well enough to hear the edge in it. They'd all been through too much to let their guard down completely, Earth or no Earth. The universe was still out there, and it still had a bone to pick with them. "Let's get a move on, then," Nyla said, settling into her role with a determination that felt almost reckless. "We've got a planet to rediscover." With the star map plotting their course, the Resolute veered through the cosmos, a speck of defiance in a universe that refused to be predictable. Nyla found herself grinning as they shot past planets and stars, her heartbeat syncing with the ship's steady hum. As they neared Earth's coordinates, reality started to settle in. There was no telling what they'd find, or if they'd even recognize the place. It was, after all, a ghost they were chasing, a possibility that had somehow become tangible. "We're coming up on it," Vu announced, her voice tinged with awe. "I'm picking up readings." "It's definitely there." "Good," Nyla replied, swallowing the lump of anticipation lodged in her throat. "Let's hope they're as happy to see us as we are to see them. Here's hoping they don't have a no visitors sign up," Decker added dryly, peering at the data. "I'd hate for us to have come all this way just to get the door slammed in our faces." "Wouldn't be the first time," Nyla said, recalling more than a few negotiations gone south. "But this time, we've got leverage. We've got proof." The ship drifted into position, the planet coming into view on their monitors. Vu let out a low whistle, shaking her head in disbelief. "Is that what it's supposed to look like?" she asked, her tone equal parts wonder and skepticism. "Because it kinda looks alive." "Alive and kicking," Nyla confirmed, a smile playing at her lips. "Whatever happened here, it looks like Earth pulled through." "Welcome home," Decker said, mock solemnity in his voice. "Or at least, welcome to the place everyone's been trying to get back to." Nyla couldn't help but agree. For all their struggles, all the detours and dead ends, they'd made it. A part of her wanted to savor the victory, to revel in the fact that they'd done what so many said was impossible. But another part knew there was still work to be done. "Let's take her down," Nyla said, steering the Resolute toward the surface. "Time to see what we're dealing with." As they descended, the ship shuddered, reacting to the atmospheric entry with a groan that spoke of their shared history. Nyla guided them in with practiced ease, the ground coming up to meet them as if to say, "Welcome back." "Where the hell have you been?" The landing was smooth, all things considered. Not that it stopped Decker from making a noise somewhere between a grunt and a sigh. "Home sweet home," he deadpanned, gazing out at the landscape. "Looks just like the brochures." Nyla powered down the ship, taking a moment to let it all sink in. They'd done it. They'd found Earth and brought it back from the brink of legend. It was a moment worth savoring, and she intended to do just that. "Let's go see what's left," Nyla said, the thrill of discovery thrumming in her veins. They disembarked, boots hitting the ground with an unfamiliar gravity. The air was different here, carrying a scent that was both alien and hauntingly familiar. It was the smell of life, of a world that had endured despite everything. "Feels right," Vu said, a touch of wonder in her voice. "Like we were always meant to be here. Don't go getting all sentimental on me," Decker chided, though even he couldn't hide the glimmer of awe in his eyes. "We've got a job to do." Nyla led the way, her steps confident as they ventured forth. The landscape stretched out before them, a mix of the known and the unknown. It was a place of possibility, of beginnings and endings wrapped up in one tantalizing package. "Think we'll find anyone here?" Vu asked, scanning the horizon. "Who knows?" Nyla replied, her gaze fixed on the path ahead. "But if there's one thing I've learned, it's to expect the unexpected." "Story of our lives," Decker muttered, though there was no missing the excitement in his voice. "Let's just hope they're friendly." Friendly or not, they'd find a way. They always did. Nyla had no doubt they'd face whatever challenges lay ahead with the same mix of grit and humor that had gotten them this far. After all, they were human, and if there was one thing humanity excelled at, it was defying expectations. As they moved deeper into the unknown, Nyla felt a sense of purpose settle over her. It was bigger than any one person, any one mission. This was about reclaiming what had been lost, forging a path for those who'd come after. And if the universe wanted to test them, well, that was fine by her. They'd faced worse and come out the other side. "Ready?" Nyla asked, pausing to take in the view. The horizon stretched endlessly, promising challenges and adventures in equal measure. "Ready as I'll ever be," Vu replied, her eyes alight with determination. "Let's do this," Decker said, brandishing his usual bravado. Together they made their way forward, guided by the promise of discovery. Earth was theirs once more, a forgotten jewel in a vast, uncaring universe. And for Nyla and her crew, it was only the beginning. With every step they wrote their own story, one of resilience and defiance, of humor and heart. Whatever lay ahead, they'd face it with the same tenacity that had brought them this far. Because in a universe that constantly tried to break them, they'd proved one simple truth: humanity was unbreakable. And that, Nyla thought with a smile, was something worth fighting for. As the Resolute settled into a reluctant rest on the surface of Earth, a dusty welcome mat if ever there was one, Nyla Renard tried not to dwell on the absurdity of it all. Humans had finally returned home, and the reception committee was nowhere to be seen. Not even a single confetti cannon. Typical. The crew stood on the gangway, looking out at what used to be home. It kind of looked like an old, forgotten garden, one where weeds and wildflowers had fought it out and decided on a mutual truce. If Earth was having a bad hair day, it was one for the record books. "So, this is what we've been busting our asses for?" Decker asked, rolling his eyes in a way that suggested he might just pop one out. "I'm underwhelmed." "Shut up, Decker," Vu replied, kicking at the ground like it owed her money. "It's a planet, with air and land. What more do you want?" "A 5-star resort wouldn't hurt," Decker shot back. "Maybe a decent bar." Nyla turned her gaze from the bickering to the horizon. There was something about the place, an odd familiarity despite the fact it felt more like a dream someone else had. Still, it was Earth, and they'd gotten to it before any of the alien factions sniffing around the universe like bloodhounds on a scent. Let's not hang about, Nyla said, taking her first steps onto the soil. We've got work to do. The ground felt solid beneath her feet, a rare sensation after so long in space. It was grounding, literally and metaphorically, and a reminder that they were still here, still human despite the odds. As they fanned out, Nyla kept an eye on her crew. Vu was busy poking at plants, probably checking if they were edible or just there for decoration. Decker, on the other hand, was scanning the surroundings with a practiced eye, as if expecting trouble to leap out from behind the nearest bush. Kind of quiet, he noted, breaking the silence that had settled over them like an awkward third wheel. Yeah, well, maybe they're shy, Vu replied, still examining her botanical finds. Or maybe they've never seen anyone as ugly as you before. Good point, Decker said, grinning. I am a rare beauty. Nyla rolled her eyes, a gesture she'd mastered over years of commanding this motley crew. Focus, people. We need to establish contact with the locals if there are any. Make sure we're not stepping on any toes, or claws, or tentacles, Decker added helpfully. They moved further into the landscape, the world around them a mix of ruins and regrowth. Buildings stood like ancient sentinels, their skeletal frames intertwined with vines and moss. Nature had reclaimed what humanity had left behind, and it appeared to be doing a better job of it too. Feels like a post-apocalyptic theme park, Vu remarked, her voice tinged with a mix of awe and amusement. All that's missing is a gift shop. Think they take galactic credits? Decker asked, his tone deadpan. If they've got any sense, they'd charge double, Nyla replied, suppressing a laugh. Given the scarcity of tourists, their exploration led them to what looked like an old city center, a plaza of sorts where time had frozen mid-chaos. Statues stood, half-toppled, their stone eyes gazing out at a world that had moved on without them. It was eerie, sure, but there was something poetic about it too, like even the rubble had a story to tell. Think anyone's still around? Vu asked, voicing the question that had been gnawing at the edges of their collective minds. Only one way to find out, Nyla said, tilting her head towards a building that looked marginally more intact than the others. Let's see if anyone's home. They approached with caution, the kind that comes from having had too many doors slammed in their faces in the past. Nyla reached out, rapping her knuckles against the surface. The sound echoed, hollow and a little too loud for comfort. Maybe they are out, Decker suggested, leaning against a crumbling wall. Or maybe they're just hiding from us, Vu countered. Can't say I blame them. Nyla was about to suggest they try another approach when a sound caught her attention. A shuffling from within, the kind that suggested someone or something was indeed present. Looks like we've got company, she said, motioning for the others to stand ready. The door creaked open slowly as if even the hinges were uncertain about this whole affair. A figure appeared, shadowy and indistinct in the dim light. Well, I'll be, Decker murmured under his breath. We've either found the locals or the world's worst doorman. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face lined with age and experience. The kind of face that had seen too much and still had the nerve to keep on looking. Who are you? The figure asked, voice roughened by time. Just travelers, Nyla replied, keeping her tone neutral. We came from above. Hoping to find someone to talk to, the figure studied them, eyes sharp and assessing. Travelers, huh? Been a while since we had any of those. Can't imagine the tourist trade is booming, Decker said, earning a sharp look from Nyla. Quiet you, she muttered before turning her attention back to their host. We're not looking for trouble, just answers. The figure nodded slowly as if weighing their words. Maybe you should come inside. Hard to talk out here with the wind carrying secrets away. With a silent agreement, they followed their new acquaintance into the building, finding themselves in what used to be a grand hall. Now, it was a place of shadows and whispers, with signs of life in the form of makeshift furniture and the faint glow of a fire. Welcome to what's left of us, the figure said, gesturing around. Name's Boren. Well, you could say I'm the caretaker of this little slice of history. Nice to meet you, Boren, Nyla said, extending a hand. I'm Nyla. This is Vu and Decker. We're from the Resolute. Boren took her hand with a surprising firmness, nodding in acknowledgement. Resolute, huh? Fitting name considering you made it all the way